Howdy everyone, this is Redbeard. We've received a lot of requests around gardening and garden related queries. So we felt that might be worthwhile just to do a few quick videos for those who want to start up a garden and don't have a lot of materials available to them. Firstly, a quick one, we support the government and its efforts with respects to COVID-19. So please don't take what I say as an excuse for you to break the rules. Be creative, but please don't break the rules. It's for everyone's benefit. Secondly, we're going to be focusing on building a type of garden that works well in our environment. Our environment is Makhanda, Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape. It is a dry environment, it's a windy environment, there's not a lot of topsoil. We'll be discussing all of those things, but I'd also like to encourage other permaculture practitioners, avid gardeners, professionals in your field, create little videos, ways that we can help our townsfolk to do things without it costing a lot of money, and let's work through that. So believe it or not, our ultimate aim is to turn this, which is our soil. You can see it's a sandy loam type of soil, very dry, very powdery, and not very deep. We want to turn it into this dark. The colloidal structure is beautiful, and there's life in there. You can see there's life in there. So we need to see what will we require for this exercise. So let's take a quick look. You'll need some basic gardening tools. A small space. As you can see, the garden beds, these raised garden beds that we're going to be doing, they're not very big. They're about 2 meters by 1 meter, and that gives you quite a bit of growing area. I think you'll be surprised what you can grow in a garden bed like that. So some basic garden tools, a little bit of space. If you can find a little bit of topsoil somewhere, that'll be great, especially in our environment where the topsoil is so shallow. And after that it's basically rock. You'll need some manure, if you can get your hands on some manure, with all the animals that we have roaming around in our environment, the donkeys and the cattle and the like. Shouldn't be too difficult. As you can see, we're using chicken manure, but you have to use smaller amounts because it is a very powerful manure. You'll see a couple of bags of dry grass here that we're going to be using as a scatter mulch. And we're also going to be using old cardboard, and if you don't have cardboard, newspaper. If you don't have newspaper, old magazines, anything that is paper based, and there's a lot of it around, and we're going to be using that as a sheet mulch. And none of these things really cost money. It's just about finding ways to get it together. And we understand that not everybody will have this in their yards, but like I said, be creative. Let's see what we can do. All right, let's get started. First things first, positioning. You have to try and find a space where your veggies and your flowers and your herbs can get between 6 to 8 hours of sun during the course of one day. That's plenty for us, even in winter. But I understand that there's a premium on space in many households. If you find that in your environment it's all shade, there are things that grow well in shade, but for most of the things that get planted, you need some sun. So just make sure that you plant or you place your garden in such a way that it gets sun both summer and winter. We've chosen this old garden bed to work on. As you can see, it is surrounded by weeds and the like. You don't have to pull out weeds, and you won't have to worry about weeds once you build the garden, because the way that you use the mulches will keep most of the seed load down. But in our case, we're going to pull them out because we want to show you what we do with them. People would ask, I mean, where's the compost coming from? We're going to be basically using raw materials that people would throw away to create a layer inside your garden bed that would compost itself over time. but we will show you how to do all of that. Just a point, if I haven't made it yet in a previous video, again, you know, those who are in the know and have done these things before, do your own little videos about what you can do with such things, so that we can all learn together. And in a few months' time, trust me, there should be a whole lot more gardens available in our town and surrounds. Okay, next steps. Once you have decided where you're going to place your garden, in our case we have pre-existing gardens, but there will be many people that don't have. If this is your first garden that you're building, don't worry about the grass and everything else. You don't need to dig it all out. If you have enough cardboard or newspaper, just lay the cardboard and the newspaper on top of the weeds or the grass that you have existing there. Don't worry about them. They will turn into materials that your plants can use eventually as food. So if you come and look at this garden quickly, it is called, we call it a raised bed, but it's also a double reach garden. Lisa, if you can come closer, please. The quickest way and the easiest way for you to check whether your garden is double reach is to have two people standing so that their arms can reach like this. The reason for that is you want to be able to reach to the center of your garden without you stepping in it. If you step in your gardens, you compress your soil, and when you compress your soil, a lot of bad things happen, and that includes that your roots do not develop as well as they should, and the water and air filtration is not as good as it should be. So when you look at our garden, what we've done here, we've taken a pre-existing garden that hasn't been touched in probably a year. We've pulled the weeds and we've chopped them up, and we're putting the weeds along with other things at the base of the bed. You can use all of this material. This will all compost naturally inside the soil. If you do decide to put other things, there's lots of things that you can put in your garden. If you have black wattle growing near you, you can use the black wattle. It's a great nitrogen fixer, and our soil is generally deplete of nitrogen, so it needs more nitrogen in order for the carbon to be turned into something useful. Now, most green things will work. Try not to use allelopathic plants or trees such as pine trees or gum trees or the like. Allelopathic basically just means that these plants chase away everything else that's near it, which means that they put acids and poisons into the soil, which keeps other plants away from them. But for the most part, most other things you can use. As you can see here, we used khaki boss and a whole bunch of other weeds. You can put, at this stage if you want, you can put some wood or branches and stuff into the soil, deep into your bed. Please don't use too much wood, because if you put too much carbon into your soil, into your vegetable garden beds, it is going to lock in all the nitrogen and nothing will grow. So you don't need compost. You can make your own inside the bed. If you have cow manure or anything like that available, now's a good time to be putting it down as well. So the next step, we will be covering this with soil that has been mixed with other amenities. We'll get back. Rightio, next step, after you've put down your bottom layer of manures and weeds and stuff like that, you need to put in the top layer. Now remember, this is a raised bed, and I'll explain quickly why. Firstly, you know you've gone high enough when it reaches about knee height, and that's got a lot of benefits to it. You don't mess up your back constantly trying to bend over so far. You now have 3 dimensions that you can grow in on the sides as well as the top, not just 2 dimensions where it's just flat. We also have the additional problem of very shallow topsoil in our part of the country, whereas on average across the world it's about 6 inches here by us. It's really very shallow before you reach rock, and that's the case with most of the poorer households as well, because of the whole apartheid spatial planning from the old days. So in the Eastern Cape, you'll find a lot of the townships are sitting on top of hills, so it's windy, it's got no topsoil. The topsoil that is there is highly eroded. So we need to do our part to heal the soil. So when it comes to the top section of your bed, you add a lot of things to it, and you can get very creative. You can put in torn up newspaper if you want, or shredded paper. You can put in wood ash, especially if your soil is is slightly acidic, which is normally the case here in the Eastern Cape or in many parts of the Eastern Cape. So you don't need lime. Normal wood ash will do the same job. You can add in crushed manure if you want. If you can afford it, you can put in some compost, unless you've made your own. Many different things that you can put in here. Get creative. The standard rule when it comes to permaculture and life in the soil is anything that once lived can live again, and it will create life. So if I pull this out, it's not dead, it's just life waiting to happen. I can use this to create healthy soil. Other things that we do that are easy to do, let's just take a walk this way. Take a look what's happening inside here. Now this is what most would refer to as liquid manure. So it's just crushed up manure and water, but you can add other things to it as well. If you've got some older mass, you can put that in there, some sour milk. There's lots of different things that you can put in there. The point behind it is you're looking for the microbial life. It's the microbial life that's going to heal your soil. And all those little things that we can't see, we can find in our everyday environment. Now there's lots of videos available on the internet about Korean natural farming, or about microbiology for the soil and the things that you can do to attract it. Typically the first step would be the lactobacillus bacteria. You know what happens to your milk when you let it stand out? It gets sour. And how does it get sour? That lactobacillus bacteria is floating around in the air. You're breathing it as we speak, and then that attaches itself to the energy of the milk, and it turns it sour. That's what it's supposed to do. So you'll find a lot of things like that in nature and around your house. Just do a little bit of research, and you'll be surprised what you can do to help heal your soil. Now we add this in to our garden beds. I'd like to point out here at this point with respect to this garden bed, because there is now a whole lot of soil here, it is best to water this garden properly before you put the cardboard and the scatter mulch and everything else on it. Now in our case we're quite lucky. On the farm we use dam water, but we recognize the fact that there are lots of households where there's limited or no water. So if you can use grey water at this point, water your garden. If you don't have any water available, then it's best for you to wait until the rains come. So in this instance we know there's going to be rain tonight and tomorrow. So if I did not have water available, I'd leave it just like this. I just open it up with a fork to make sure that the water can seep in, and I'd let the rain soak it before I cover it. The reason for that is you're looking at a fair amount of material here, and it's best to get it wet when you build it. The upside with this bed is once it's built and once you've put the cover on, it holds its water very well. It becomes a waterwise garden. But when you build it, you need to just make sure that you get the water in there first. Okay, great stuff. We'll chat soon. Now I have no doubt this looks like a big mess, or perhaps like we're burying someone here. A lot of people have told me that this is where the tire meets the tar, people. What you see here is a lot of newspaper and cardboard. Incidentally, the vast majority of this is already a year old. The newspapers show March 2019. A lot of great folks in town, as time goes by, would come and drop off either newspapers or cardboard by the pile, because they know that we use them in our gardens. So let's just talk about this for a few moments. There's a couple of benefits to this. Firstly, a lot of the stuff that you've mixed into your soil now, like the weeds and maybe if you use black wattle and several other things, they would have seed in them. Now if you leave your soil open, the sun gets to those seeds and they will sprout. Now there's no sun coming through to the soil, so those seeds will simply just break down and become compost like everything else in there. There's lots of other benefits to it as well. Think of it as a duvet, not a normal hot blanket, but a duvet that breathes. So this is just wood or carbon at the end of the day. This all comes from trees, and it needs to go back into the soil and not to the tip where we end up dumping all our rubbish and it burns up and we all have bad lungs. Some people have questions around the ink in the newspaper and in the cardboard. From my understanding, in our country, we no longer use lead-based paints. So this is veggie oil based, and I believe there's actually holes around it. So you're very safe when it comes to that. The newspaper and the cardboard will hold water for longer. Remember what I said, that as you're building this you need to water it, but once it's built, the garden like this holds water for a very, very, very long time. You will only need to water your seeds and your seedlings in the little holes that you plant them eventually. But the bed itself, every time it rains, it'll suck in water and it'll hold it in for longer. And that's why I always say to people, no matter what type of garden you build, mulch, mulch, mulch. Put something over your soil. In our country, we lose an awful lot of water coming from the soil. We lose more than we gain. That's why we're a dry country. That's why we are considered a dry country. So our evaporation rate is higher than our precipitation rate. This helps. It sucks in the water, it holds it there. But there's lots of other benefits too. Worms love it. So your earthworms are going to think this is a buffet for them. They're going to come and enjoy this. They're going to turn it into good quality soil for you. They're going to aerate your soil for you. Lots and lots of benefits to using cardboard and mulch. This is the mulch that I was talking about. Remember previously we put the cardboard on and the newspaper. That is called sheet mulch. This on top of that is called scatter mulch. This is just long grass that's been cut on our farm in the backyard. You can use many different things, leaves, even kikuyu ones that's been cut, as long as you give it time to dry before you put it on. Now I know there's a lot of people that worry will it blow away. Once you wet it, and again if you don't have water you'll have to wait for a rainy day before you do it. Once you wet it, everything starts matting together. We get 70-80 km/h winds up here in Highlands, here by the wind turbines. So and our gardens are doing fine. We're not losing our mulch. So it mats together, and again it offers you many different benefits. It creates a home for microbial life. It will in time turn into compost along with everything else. It allows things to breathe. In winter, when your roots are cold, this will keep it nice and warm. It keeps it cool in summer, so you can grow more things than you would normally. It's not just growing winter veggies in winter purely. In a situation like this, you can also often grow veggies that can take a little bit of hampering in the cold. It's worthwhile putting this on as deeply and as thickly as you can, because this is what holds the water into your garden. It sucks everything up nicely along with the cardboard. Okay, last quick video. The wind is coming up. We know the rain is coming. We just wanted to show you the different gardens that we've built so far. You'll see that there's pathways in between. We cover the pathways in cardboard and mulch as well. It just becomes a lot more difficult when you've got a garden bed that's keeping all the weeds and everything away, yet your pathway is growing long grass and weeds and all kinds of things. Put the mulch and the cardboard in your pathways as well. It'll help keep the soil moist. It'll create a lot of benefits for your soil. You can see that we're putting trees in between, or we have put trees in between. These are wild olives. Further up we've got some weeping boerbean and the like. I just wanted in the last video just to chat quickly about the placement of plants and the type of things that you would put in the soil. Firstly, we prefer planting our flowers and our herbs before we plant our veggies. You can plant them at the same time, but we prefer doing it beforehand. The reason we do that is because we don't use any chemical pesticides, and there's a lot of plants and flowers and herbs out there that you can use to minimize the damage from bugs and from your pests. So look that up. There's a lot of information available on the internet, which flowers and herbs would attract bugs, so that you can pick them off and drown them if you want, or in our case we feed them to our chickens. There's other flowers that chase certain bugs away. Let's use an example, mint for example. Ants don't like it, but keep in mind what it is that you plant. A mint, for example, is not a good idea to be planting inside the soil, because it grows invasively, if I can put it that way. It's better to put something like that in a pot. When it comes to, so do your homework, in other words. We're not creating these videos so that we can answer all the questions. There's a lot of questions and a lot of things that we didn't cover, but there's an awful lot of information available on the internet, and I'm sure a lot of our permaculture practitioners and other agricultural specialists will be happy to chime in as well, and help with all the questions that might come through. When it comes to the placing, keep in mind where the sun comes up and goes down. In our case, this side is east and this side is west. The western side, the afternoon sun, is by far the hottest for us. So what we would do is on that side we would plant tall plants such as the Ford's Hook giant Swiss chard, what we refer to as spinach in our country, and we would plant the shorter ones on the eastern side because they can then still get that morning sun as it goes up. In between, try and mix up what it is that you plant where between the flowers and the herbs and the veggies. The more confusion you can create for the bugs, the better chance you stand of the success of the plantings. We know this works. We've done it in many different places, in the driest of spots, in the windiest of spots, and this type of garden bed works for our environment here in Grahamstown and Makhanda. I hope this was helpful, and again, if there are more people out there that can do little videos for our town, that would be fantastic. Last message, keep safe, keep your distance, and let's all stay healthy. Cheers.